Welcome to Backstage with Richard Ridge. I continue my SAG-AFTRA Foundation BroadwayWorld Conversation Q&A series, which celebrates the vibrant theater community here in New York City and the union actors who aspire to have a career on both stage and screen. This special event, which is coming from the New School, is a career conversation with one of Broadway's brightest new stars. She won the Tony Award for her show-stopping performance in You Can't Take It With You. She plays Betty DeMello on the hit Showtime TV series Masters of Sex. And she is back on Broadway, wowing audiences and critics alike in the A.R. Gurney comedy SYLVIA. Please welcome Annaleigh Ashford. Well, first of all, how much fun are you having being back on Broadway in SYLVIA?
Oh my God, we're having a ball. Matthew Broderick makes me laugh all day long, as well as Julie White and the brilliant Robert Sella. We're having, I think, just a special time sharing this beautiful play that is a great reminder of the magical relationship and secret language that we have with our animals. I see my friend. Hello, my top 5 co-star, fellow actress Deborah Hoffner. Yay!
Well, you are hilarious, touching, and simply wonderful in this show.
Oh, thank you.
What is it like playing a dog?
You know, it's been one of the greatest challenges of my life as an actor. But I think it's been kind of the most rewarding in a lot of ways. I read 9 dog books, 2 nonfiction, 2 fiction, 7 nonfiction. And I took my research very seriously, which sounds silly, but it was true. My 6-year-old Australian Shepherd, Gracie, and I took agility, sheep herding, and obedience classes together. And I got like kind of overly obsessed with the way that animals see the world. And one of the most helpful books was actually Temple Grandin's Animals in Translation. Mostly because she doesn't always give you a dog's perspective, but she gives you such a beautiful insight into an animal's perspective and how they see the world in detail in a special way that we don't. And it kind of magnified I think the specifics of the mysterious language that our dogs cue us into and why they are so obsessive about who's at the door and what's outside the window, and you know how they see the squirrel, they don't see the mountain, you know. So that has been extremely helpful. But I must say, if you wanted me to help your dog with their obedience or animal behavior issues, I wouldn't say I'm an animal behaviorist, but I would say that I'm more knowledgeable than the average Joe.
I see another career in there if you want one, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of, I mean, we had a talk back on Tuesday night with Jill Rappaport from ABC. She was amazing because she's an incredible animal rescue supporter. So she brought a dog that she rescued off the side of the road in Florida. This enormous standard poodle named Stanley, who was so lovely and sweet. I came on the stage and he sniffed my crotch immediately, which got a nice laugh from the crowd. Awkward, but nice laugh. So I was like, well, I thought maybe I was ovulating. Should we ask Stanley? And that kind of got a laugh, but if it had been a room of like dog animal behavior specialists, they would have got a great laugh. Because basically dogs can like smell fear. And anyways, I'm not going to get into that. But I thought it was really funny. But it was it was kind of interesting how everybody greeted the dog, because everybody greeted the dog the normal way that humans do without knowing the way that dogs think. They said hello by touching its head and patting it. And I came up to the side of it. I kneeled down. I let him smell my hand, and then I let him smell my face. And we had like a whole, dog experience. The trainers in my life would have been very proud.
How did you find and perfect your bark?
My bark was thankfully originated out of, I think, kind of the blueprint of Mr. A.R. Gurney and Sarah Jessica Parker, who originated the role. A lot of the play comes from what they found in that original production, and they kind of give you an outline in the script, which is extremely helpful. So my hey hey hey, which is our bark. If you haven't seen the show, I go hey, like hey 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 hey. But thankfully, Dan Sullivan, our director, and Pete Gurney have let me kind of do my thing. So when I'm saying hey to Bowser, it's like hey, like hey hey hey, you know. So they've let me have a little, creative liberty there.
Well, let's talk about working with your brilliant director, Daniel Sullivan. You had not worked together before, had you?
No, we actually hadn't. I actually hadn't met him. I'd obviously seen his work throughout, my life, and he had seen mine, but we actually didn't meet until the first day of rehearsal, which was kind of crazy. But him and Pete Gurney have a long-standing affair in the theater together. They did both of their first plays. Pete as a playwright and Dan as a director. They did their very first venture together at Lincoln Center, I think in like 60 something. And Matthew Broderick's dad, James Broderick, was in the play. So they used to bring he used to bring Matthew to rehearsal, and Matthew says, I remember my dad being really happy in that play, and it was a really, I guess, joyful experience for everybody. And so it's been, I think, overall a family affair.
Great cast.
Incredible cast. Julie White is one of our great comedians of the theater and stage and screen of all. She's just outrageous. She has, there's a line that she has that she was like, don't worry, I'll find this laugh. It may take me until December, but I'll find it. And last night, she found that laugh in a house that was hard to find a laugh with. And she found it. And then on top of that, I think, I always say it's so much harder to do comedy than it is to do drama because you have to be even more authentic, and even more real. And, she's a great dramatic actress. And then Robbie Sella is giving a tour de force performance as these three brilliant and very different characters. One, a kind of dowdy dog owner, two, a sassy Upper East Side lady named Phyllis, and third, the transgender, non-specific gender creature therapist person named Leslie, which is very confusing but very specific at the same time. So he's brilliant. We're having a ball.
Now sit, Sylvia, sit.
I'm not ready to sit.
I said sit.
I'm too nervous to sit.
Down, Sylvia.
I'm worried about where I sleep. Do I sleep on this couch?
No, down, Sylvia. No, Sylvia. You're down now. You sit. Sit here. Sit down. Sit, Sylvia. Sit.
Ouch.
I want to go back to the beginning. Growing up, where did your love for performing begin, and what were your earliest creative outlets?
We found these weird videos from when I was a little girl. My mom found them like a month ago. My grandpa gave them to her. And like everybody's like, oh, my home videos. I was so precocious and I was dancing around the living room, blah, 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 But I have footage of me going up to the camera going, I'm not a crook, with both my hands like, I literally go, I'm not a crook, when I was 3. And then I'd wait and look around and get my laugh. And then I'd enjoy the laugh that I brought, which there's a lot of levels to this that are awkward. The first is, why was I doing a Nixon impression? It was about 87, so that was a little late for a Nixon impression. Obviously, somebody taught it to me, and I repeated it and thought it was really funny. But anyways, the point of me saying that is, I had this, you're often asked that question as an actor, like, when did you know you wanted to be an actor? And I always say, like, I don't know, I just always wanted to, which sounds so cliche. So now I have this odd proof of me getting a laugh. And what it really means is, I think the intention of my career has always been, even when I was a little girl, was to be a storyteller. And when kind of the glitz and the glamour and the highs and the lows of our business kind of get in the way, it's always kind of a great reminder. What is the intention? It's to be a great storyteller. And also an intention in comedy is to be a great storyteller and to kind of take people away from the day. And getting a laugh shouldn't be about an ego, and it shouldn't be a selfish thing. It should be about bringing joy to people. So, I mean, my weird Nixon joke, As a child, as a 3-year-old, I think was the seed, the budding seed of wanting to bring laughter and joy.
Well, then tell me about the Kit Andres Dance and Performing Arts Center.
Oh, I just love, all of us have people that have inspired us throughout our childhood, and most of them were great performers who, for some reason or other, didn't make it to New York or LA to share their talent with the world. But they shared it with their community, and Miss Kit was one of those people. She was one of the most brilliant songstresses. That's not a word, but I just made it one. I've ever seen in my life. She was incredible. My mom was an elementary school gym teacher. It still is. And she made me do like a combination of sports that I hated, one of which was track and cross country. And I was like terrible at it. I hated running. I hated it like really bad. I talk about it on the album. I talk about Miss Kit. But at the end of one of my final track meets, I was like, can I please just sing the national anthem? And I was like 7, and she was like, okay, it's time. So we looked up the nearest dance studio, and thank God, it was Kit Andres Dance and Performing Arts Center. That's KITANDREE with an accent. This isn't my act. Now I'm just going to go with my act. She wanted to be French, but she wasn't.
I love it.
She wasn't. I don't know where she came from. She came from somewhere in the South. But she was crucial for my development as an artist because she made me be an artist as a little person. She didn't play the piano, so for voice lessons, we just used karaoke tapes. And the first karaoke tape that we had was Judy Garland at Carnegie Hall as a karaoke tape. First of all, how fabulous that was a karaoke tape. It was like game magic. Like, what? That's the best thing I've ever heard. I wish we still had it. I would just like frame it. So weird. So anyways, we got through that tape, and then we moved on to Liza Minnelli. And like maybe this time was one of our favorites. It was a great power ballad for me, like for real.
So when you came to New York, you went to Marymount Manhattan College.
Yes.
And you auditioned all throughout college, but you never got any callbacks.
I never got called back for anything. I would go to EPAs and chorus calls. Like I would go to 2 or 3 a week. I had a weird little chair. I scheduled all my classes so they were later in the day so that I could like basically get them in by 2 o'clock. And I had my equity card, so I would get seen, but the only callback I ever had the entire 3 years was at an open call for Hairspray on the Road, and Jerry Mitchell was running it because there always has to be a creative person from the creative team at the open calls. And he called me back. I didn't end up getting the job, but he was, you get called back and then you go to other people, so I didn't see him at my other callbacks. But he like gave me this great kernel of hope, after all those auditions, I couldn't get called back, but Jerry Mitchell did. And then he gave me my first Broadway show. So how about that?
Well, your first big break was in the first national tour of Wicked.
Yes.
What was it like living in the world of Wicked?
Oh my gosh. Actually, right after that show, Stephen Aremus came to see the show, who's the music director. And he was like, hey, we should bring her in for Wicked. And my final callback for the show, I did all the Glinda material, and they took me out in the waiting room and they were like, okay, I was a little green, which means, you know what that means. But at the time I was so green, I didn't even know what it meant. I was like, what's that mean? Did I wear the wrong foundation? But anyways, they had like a spot opening up on Broadway, and the spot had a spot opening up on the road. And the awesome actress who had been doing it on the road, she went to Broadway. But they also had an Elphaba standby in Chicago open up. So they were like, we know that you like belt or whatever. Do you know any Elphaba material in the waiting room? And I was like, I know like the end of Defying Gravity. That's the one I know the best. And they were like, okay. So I sat there for 15 minutes, went over it. I came in and I went, yeah! And like they fell over laughing. And Joe Mantello went, well, she's a Glinda. Because it was crazy. So I got to go out on the road. It was one of the most exciting. It was also, the show was so new. It was the first time that we played the Kennedy Center that Christmas. Carol Shelley came in and did it with us for a couple months. And Stephanie Block and Kendra Caspon were brilliant. It was a magic time. It was great.
I love She's a Glinda.
I know, crazy.
You made your Broadway debut as Margot in the musical Legally Blonde for director Jerry Mitchell.
Yes, I left the road for for one of the Mondays. I flew from the road, auditioned for Legally Blonde, and I got the job in one audition. I left thinking that I sucked balls, but but apparently I sucked balls in a magic way. So it's kind of one of those great reminders that what we think we do in auditions is not always what happened. And I got the job. Jerry was like, "She's it. This is it." They all really liked what I did, and so that was great. It was crazy. And then I had such an incredibly overwhelming learning experience because it was the first time I did a show from scratch like that on Broadway, and it was my Broadway debut. And we went out of town. We had a proper out of town tryout, and the best person in the whole world to do out of town tryouts is Jerry Mitchell. You rehearse and fix the show every day. So by the time you get to New York, it's not like this mad dash rush. The team is ready. You feel supported. You know the show. And so the tweaks and the changes that you do make in New York are subtle. They're crafted. They're specific. So that was a great joy.
Well, you got to play Jeannie in the Broadway revival of Hair.
Yes.
Favorite memories of that?
Oh my gosh. Well, this is a sad memory, but it's kind of odd because that show is so beautiful and it's so special and it's also so specific. So if you don't do it right, you have to do it right. That's what I'm saying. So we got our closing notice and it was a sad day, but it was time. Shows have their time and you want to go out on a positive note. And because it was Hair, somebody was like, let's all do a shot of tequila and have a celebration tonight. And so I do not drink or anything before a show. It's like not my thing. I can't do it. Some people can like have a glass of champagne and sing a set. I've never been one of those people. I will. So anyways, I was like, okay, kumbaya, because it's just the spirit of the show. Everybody's like, and it was Jeannie, so I'm pregnant, and I took a shot, and it's not like I can handle my liquor or what. It was psychosomatic. That was the worst experience of my life. I rolled around that stage just acting like I acted like I wasn't drunk, but it was like something bad happened to me and I couldn't move, or I think I actually just had my first panic attack. So the moral of that story is just don't do it. When everybody else is doing it, you don't have to. I should have been like, oh.
Well, you then took on the role of Maureen in the reimagined off-Broadway production of the Jonathan Larson musical Rent. This was a role you never thought you were going to do, right?
I never thought anybody would let me do it. And thank God, Michael Greif called me back like 4 times just to double check. And I'm so grateful to him for the opportunity because I really feel like it helped kind of shift the shape of my career. And what I mean by that is it shifted the shape of my type, or really not the type to me, but what everybody else thought I was. And it also was a reimagining of the role in a lot of ways. I really took her intention as a performance artist very seriously, and I really wanted it to reflect performance art of the early 90s. And so Michael went with me, and we kind of explored that together. And it was vocally one of the best experiences of my life. I've never had more fun singing a score. I've never had an easier score to sing. It was, for some reason, I could wake up and sing it. I don't know. We had an early morning event. I didn't even have to warm up. It was just like sat perfectly for me. It was magic. That was one of my most favorite roles ever.
Well, up next was the musical Dogfight. I loved this show at Second Stage.
It was a really, really striking, difficult, risky, inventive piece that really challenged, I think, the audience viewers. And I think that my role specifically was so important to kind of the piece because it added a levity and a lightness, but then there was also such great darkness about her, and it was just one of the many hookers that I've played in my career. But she was one of the most interesting. It was great to sing their music. Pasek and Paul, I think, are going to be one of our greats. They were awesome.
Like I said, it was a dark musical, but so good. It's based on the movie Dogfight, where the soldiers, right? Just explain.
Yeah, the soldiers it's the night before. It takes place the night before Kennedy got shot, and the soldiers are about to go off to Vietnam, and they have a dogfight, which is for them that night. It's they all have to bring the ugliest girl to a dance, and whoever's brings the ugliest girl wins. And I was the ugliest girl. Marcy is the ugliest girl. She's a hooker with no teeth. I still have that little prosthetic fake teeth thing they gave me. I can't wait to use it for an audition. It hasn't come up yet again. But I had these like fake teeth, and I had this great beehive that was crazy tall. I got to play a couple different characters, but Marcy was really the one. And Lindsay Mendez played this beautiful girl who realizes that that's what happened, and she really thought this guy liked her. And the guy, played by Derek Klena, actually does kind of fall in love with her through his guilt at first, and then you know, they find something there. So it's a difficult subject, but I think also really lovely.
You know, we have a lot of actors and actresses here today. You were talking about type.
Mm-hmm.
Casting directors will see you as one type unless you sort of step out of that box and prove yourself, right?
Absolutely. You know, when I was first starting out, Legally Blonde was absolutely one of the blessings of my life, but it also made casting directors specifically go, we can't, Legally Blonde, I think, was a very underrated musical. It's crafted well. It has really, I think, really smart, clever lyrics. The show is put together beautifully, and I think personally, the success that it had in London, I think that it was kind of like a testament to my thoughts on the show. Like, if you really sit down and read it, it's well written. But we came in a season that I think shaped kind of the perception of the show. We came in an incredible season with Mama Who Bore Me, Mama, Spring Awakening, and Grey Gardens, two amazing shows. And I don't think that Legally Blonde is a perfect show, but I do think that it was judged. Here's the way that I think about it. You go see a season of work, and the season is going to shape your opinion of the work, and that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing, because the theater should be an event that you're a part of, and your thoughts and your feelings and your background and your emotions are going to shape what you think about when you walk in. And so, of course, the season is going to shape what you think about that. So on that note, I think moving on from there, I'd have casting directors sometimes be like, well, she played that blonde in Legally Blonde. Well, and occasionally they sometimes they would be like, what you did in that show was really interesting. You had to talk to a dog, and you had to authentically make us believe that you could speak dog, which is so ironic because I'm playing Sylvia right now. But those casting directors who really saw the craft that it took, because it did take a weird bit of craft, were like, yeah, let's see her for that. But there were some who were like, no, she's just a blonde. She played Glinda next, so yeah, she's the blonde kind of dumb girl. And that was fine, because I love me some Goldie Hawn. But Goldie Hawn kind of ran into the same kind of, I think, issues kind of earlier in her career, you know, and then it just takes a little bit of time for people to see you as an actress, and it's all part of it. It's all part of the journey.
Got it. You then played Lauren in the musical Kinky Boots, where you won the hearts of critics and audiences alike, receiving your first Tony nomination, and you won the Clarence Derwent Award.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Big deal, right?
Well, Kinky Boots, you know, I was the queen of readings that moved on to Broadway, but I didn't move on with them. So Natalie in Next to Normal was one of them. I played Wednesday in Addams Family. I played Carrie Butler's role in Catch Me If You Can. I played Campbell in Bring It On. I'm missing like some really big ones too, like another couple. So that's not a bad thing. I think it's always a positive. People would be like, well, you are not moving on with it. I'd be like, well, I helped develop what that piece is supposed to be. You know, I was a piece of the creative process, and I'm proud of that. But Kinky Boots was the first one that I did all the readings from the very beginning. Me and Lena Hall, then Selena Carvajal, now Lena Hall. We did all the readings together leading up to opening night. And I saw Cheetah Rivera waving at me from the audience, like on the opening, and I just like wept openly. I was so grateful to God for the journey of it. And also, you know, when we first started, Lauren was kind of an odd girl, and they let me shape her. I was like, this is a blue-collar girl who's just been caught up with the wrong guys, and she's so smart, and nobody knows it. She's so smart, and she couldn't get out of this town and go get, you know, some more education. And, you know, Charlie gives her this opportunity to help run the business, and she helps him save it.
Used to think you were from outer space. bright guy in your place. You're kinda cute when you're not so shy. Oh. But I've been here before. Have I come back for more? Another chapter in the history of wrong guys. You used to be so I'll impact cluster more, but now you're changing into something I just can't ignore. Charlie, honestly, I've been hurt like this before. Is there really more to you than what I always thought? How can you surprise me anymore? Oh, oh, oh,
Well, you won the Tony Award for Best Featured Actress in a Play for your show-stopping performance of S.E. Carmichael in You Can't Take It With You. You had the time of your life working on this, didn't you?
Oh, it was such a family affair. And what I mean by that is not only was it a show about a family, but my husband was also in the show. And all the people that were a part of that show became a family to us forever. That show is absolutely a classic. It's also another Pulitzer winning prize masterpiece. But because it's so specific, you have to have a perfect cast, or it can be, problematic. It's done so often around the country in high schools. And I always say that, a show is written well if you can do it at any high school, like Fiddler, West Side Story, like all the good high schools stand, but Guys and Dolls, it's a great show. And that's why 9th through 12th graders can get a handle on it, But anyway, so it's another one of those shows. But if it's not cast well, it could be disastrous. Well, not disastrous, but, not so good. But it was perfect. It was all the perfect people. And we played the Wii in between shows together. And we watched weird movies in between shows together. We really were a family. And I owe all of the, the wonderful honors that I received for that show, I owe to that company because they made me look so much better than I am.
Hey, Essie!
oh, Ed, I like it. Did you write it?
No, Beethoven.
Oh, it's lovely. It's got a lot of you in it. I made those new candies this afternoon, Ed.
Yeah?
Yeah, you can take them around tonight.
All right. Now, here's the finish. This is me.
You have one of the best cabaret acts called Lost in the Stars.
Oh, thank you.
How did you put it together?
I've always been a fan of cabaret because Kid Andre, my original voice teacher, she owned a club in the 70s in downtown Denver called Kids Club. So basically she was teaching me how to be a cabaret artist when I was a little girl. We would do my numbers like it was a club act. Like everything had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it was all about the lyrics. And it was about storytelling. So I've always been a great fan. Patti LuPone at Les Mouches was a great inspiration to me. Also, Ann Hampton Calloway, Liz Calloway was a great inspiration to me. Their Sibling Reverie album. So I started working on this piece originally back in like 2010, I think, or 2009. I did a show with Alex Lacamoire at Birdland, and it was my first kind of go at it. Small, just me and him at the piano. And then a couple years ago, me and Will Van Dyke were like, let's book a date at 54 Below. I did something kind of fun for his birthday. I did a sing-along, and he was like, that'd be fun in a club act. I was like, well, I've always wanted to do a real one. So we did it.
Talk about the new CD, which was recorded live at 54 Below, right?
Yeah, last winter, we did a string of Monday nights, and people really enjoyed it and said we'd love to have an album of this. So we just recorded like we only recorded 2 of them, and we got a live album out of it, which apparently is impossible these days because I guess it makes me insane that like in the 60s and 70s, everything was like a live album and that was great and you didn't have to do anything to it. Now the way that things are recorded, it's much more complicated. So apparently we did a magic thing.
You're back there New Year's Eve. You're doing a big show, right?
Yeah, we're doing the New Year's show. So I'm having to write all this new material right now, which is very complicated and confusing. The first number that we're starting with New York Groove, I'm coming out in a Statue of Liberty costume. Because it's New Year's, we're in Times Square. So New York Groove I thought was like perfect. And then I'm doing a magic act to explore the events of 2015. So I'm working on that right now. It's not good magic.
My final question is, what is the best bit of advice that you've been given, both personally and professionally, that you live by?
To keep the faith. And that means a balance in perspective. So the highs are going to be really high in this business. The lows are going to be really low in this business. And not just in this business, they are going to be in life. I think as a New Yorker, we have really high highs and really low lows. We live an extreme life. So keeping a balance and a perspective has been like so integral for me in the quiet times and in the busy times. And then also, I think that's also helped me keep kind of a great faith. The reason that this last couple of years has been so wonderful for me is I've gotten to do work that's been based in intention. So Kinky Boots was written not to just write a big fat hit musical. It was written to share a story with people and help people open their hearts and open their minds. The same thing for You Can't Take It With You. You know, the play is called You Can't Take It With You, and that kind of says everything.
Well, I want to thank you for one of the most insightful, inspirational, and funny afternoons.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Annaleigh Ashford.